Welcome to Keystone Cold Cases, a podcast that aims to reignite cold cases across Pennsylvania. We are here to bring attention to the stories that have faded into the background, honoring the victims and their families along the way. Each episode is a step closer to understanding the truth, because every case deserves more than just a passing glance, and every voice deserves to be heard.
Hey guys, it's Chelsea, and today I am joined by Shannon. How you doing tonight?
I am good, Chelsea. How are you?
I am pretty excited because tonight we are joined by the Corrupt podcast host, Angela and Paige. Ladies, how are you guys doing?
We're good, thanks. We're really excited to be here.
Yeah, we're happy and
I'm
we're
Paige.
excited. And I'm Angela.
Angela and I started the Corrupt podcast in 2024. We are right next door in Ohio. We discuss true crime, diving into the corrupt, the cruel, and the calculating. On the lighter side, we also cover histories and mystery.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know that we are doing this episode together, and then at some point we'll be doing an episode with you too. So very excited to collab with you guys.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely something to look forward to.
Absolutely. Well, let's get right into it. Today we are talking about Julie Conway. And we often take time for granted, assuming there will always be a next moment, a next visit, a next goodbye. But how would you act if you knew it was the last time you would see someone? For 12-year-old Michael Wright, it was just another ordinary day. His mother, Julie, stepped out to run errands. There was no reason to believe she wouldn't come back, but she didn't. Julie vanished in August 1993, and just over a week later, she was found, not in the way her family had hoped. Since that day, her loved ones have been living with heartbreak, unanswered questions, and a desperate search for the truth. So today, we're going to walk through this timeline of Julie, her case, and the mystery that still haunts those that she left behind. So we're going to be talking about Shenango Township in Lawrence County, Pennsylvania. If you're unfamiliar, Shenango Township is located along the most western point of Pennsylvania. It runs along the Pennsylvania-Ohio border, and according to Google Maps, it sits like halfway between the Pittsburgh and then Ohio. And Shenango Township is primarily suburban and rural areas, and development has been on the uptick, as I'm sure most listeners in Pennsylvania can commiserate with. Where I'm located, it's like a game of how many houses you can put on a small parcel of land.
Same here. Our town has blown up. I've lived here about 20 years. And when I moved here, it was very, not very populated. It was a nice, smaller town. But since the main drag through my town has blown up with like restaurants and breweries, mostly breweries. So now everybody wants to move in, and they've like high density housing's gone up and like very small, like square footprint. So I'm like, all right, let's go. This is I call it a Manayunk wannabe borough. If you're familiar with that area of Philadelphia, it's getting too much at this point in time. Anywhere there's a plot of land, like you said, Chelsea, it's either houses that cost $500,000 or it's apartments that cost $3,000 for a 2-bedroom.
Yes, and for Angela and Paige, if you're unaware, so the Phoenixville area that Shannon is talking about, I think it was just like rated like the smallest area for the most amount of breweries. I think, is it in just Pennsylvania, or is it broader than that, Shannon?
I've heard it both ways, but honestly, I can't cite any sources because it's mostly a word of mouth. But yeah, I think at the very least, it's the state of Pennsylvania, the most breweries per, square mile or whatever. It's just, yeah, it's crazy.
So
and Bridge Street, where all the breweries are, is about maybe 6 blocks long.
So they're like getting drunk a lot is what you guys are saying?
Oh my goodness. Yes.
I was thinking it sounds like I was thinking it sounds like a fantastic place to visit, but maybe not live.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
It was also
Yes,
just
and
voted like one of the best small towns too.
Oh,
And
really?
I was like, really? Like our governor put it on his like one of his Facebook pages, and then some people were like, "Oh yeah, it's great." And other people were like, "Unless you live there, it's just
They were probably drunk writing
it's a cute
that.
little town." Oh my gosh, yeah. They used to put out a police blotter, and there was a lot of public drunkenness posts, and at least I guess they stopped doing it because it's pretty much all they were writing.
We're feeling it pretty heavy here too, the urbanization. So for our town specifically, it was named for its location because it was along the Shenango River. And if you like to connect dots, a couple star athletes have made their way from Shenango Township. If you like baseball, you might have heard of Chuck Tanner, who was a former major baseball player and World Series manager. Then there was Michael, I'm going to try to say, I think it's right, Othites, possibly? I'm not sure. Who is the current coach of the Wildcats baseball team in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. So our story takes us back to 1993, right before Labor Day weekend. Schools were beginning to open for the new school year. People were getting in the last of their vacations, and back to school shopping was happening. All the busy work settling in not only a new school year, but change in seasons coming with the summer fastly drifting away. For the Conways, it was an ordinary Saturday, nothing spectacular. On August 28th, Julie Ray Wright Conway was planning on running errands. They had been doing house updates, and the one that they were currently in the process of at that time was working on the porch. Julie needed brushes and other supplies, and the following day there was a reunion that she was attending, and she wanted to stop and pick up a grill for that reunion. Her plan was to hit up the warehouse sales, which was her local hardware store. Julie offered for her son to join for these errands, but he did not get ready in time before she had left. And if you have kids, I'm sure you get that. My teen acts like we have all the time in the world, whereas I'm adding up all this time in the day to see where everything will literally fit.
Yeah, at 12 years old and with TV shows he wanted to watch, I bet Michael was dilly-dallying around.
Yeah, I don't have children anymore. Like my kids are grown, but I have two granddaughters. And when they do this, we refer to it as autumn time or Genevieve time. Like we're just here to serve them and be on their timetable. Doesn't work that way.
So my daughter actually is on top of me. She's the one that's ready before I am. And she's like,
you're lucky.
Mom,
That's
are you ready?
amazing.
You need to do this. Yeah, I'm really proud of her. She's me
management
lying.
material.
Yeah. Yeah.
In an article from Newcastle's News, Michael Wright said that he wanted to go with her, but he was dilly-dallying, and she had simply left. Reading articles, this didn't really seem out of the ordinary. He was with his stepfather, James Conway, so it wasn't like he was home alone. After she left, he simply watched TV. He called a cousin to talk about the shows he was watching, and he was waiting for a package. At some point, he fell asleep, and when he woke up, his mother still was not home. Later in the day, Julie's parents, Chester and Shirley Wright, dropped in. Michael claims that his grandmother had a motherly intuition that something was wrong. Scientists discount these intuitions or gut feelings, but I can name so many cases where a parent, most likely the mother, can reference back to a time that aligns with danger for their children because they just know something is wrong.
So in this case, that's basically what happened, right? Shirley stopped over at the house because she knew something wasn't right.
From an article in Newcastle News, Michael was quoted as saying, "She knew something was wrong. There was no real reason for them to show up there that day. So I personally think that was why they came there."
Wow.
I really wish I could relate to this because, I have some intuition, but when it comes to things like this, like if I get anxious, then my brain goes right to something's wrong. So I really can't trust my intuition all the time.
Like the anxiousness takes over.
Yeah.
Forget about the intuition.
Exactly. It's like, oh, everything's gonna go wrong. The world's coming to an end.
Yeah.
I don't know though. We're working on another case. It hasn't come out yet, and it wasn't the mom. It was the aunt of the victim, and it wasn't even like anxiousness. It was just like she knew in that moment something was wrong. It's like, I guess she identifies it different as anxiety, but I mean, I guess you don't know until you experience it.
Yeah.
Yep.
After a while at the Conway's house, Julie's parents left, but it was not really long before they had to make the return back. James called them later that day asking them to watch Michael. They were still surprised that Julie had not returned home from these simple errands. James seemed more worried about getting to work than the absence of Julie, and I'm thinking, is this one of our first red flags? You'd think he'd call off work to try to find her.
Absolutely, or at least drive by the stores that she was supposed to be at.
Yeah, I would throw all the red flags up in the air on this one. I mean, they could have been having marital problems or like got into a bad fight, but like basically ignoring the fact that your wife is missing doesn't look good for you, James.
Exactly. I do like to take things back because, hey, we're in a totally different time. This was like 3 decades ago. People were not connected like we are today. There were no cell phones and an immediate connection. Maybe she ran into an acquaintance. Maybe she stopped for food. Maybe her errands ran long. But she left around-ish 11 a.m. and still wasn't home by 4:30 p.m. And that's concerning. That's a long time to like lose track of time. Her parents, on the other hand, were not as easily placated. By 9 to 10 p.m., Shirley had reported Julie to the police as a missing person. Her parents took Michael back to their home to stay the night, and police reached out to James to inform him that Julie's parents made that report.
So Chelsea, do you know like how long Julie and James were together, or married, and like how was James' relationship with Michael? Like where was Michael's father in all this? This just kind of.
So I do not know how long their relationship was. I'm assuming that Michael and James weren't really that close because it seems in the days after the disappearance, he spent most of his time with Julie's family, her parents, and her siblings. And in a Newcastle News article, he said his biggest supporters, after this entire incident, were the Shenango Area School District Principal, Dr. Patrick O'Toole, the Assistant Principal, Tom Hallman, and Bill McNess, who was, I believe, his former math teacher and former coach. And he credits them for giving him a passion to become a teacher who moved to being a principal himself. As for Michael's biological father, literally in none of the articles, I saw no mention of him anywhere.
I'm glad he at least had a nice support system.
Yes, very glad that the district stepped up for him because you never know who will be that person for you when times are tough.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about Julie Ray Wright Conway. Julie was born on July 29th, 1958 to Chester and Shirley Wright, like we already talked about. She has a sister named Sherry and a brother named David. They grew up in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and Julie attended Shenango High School. People say that she got along with everyone. If you look at her picture, she has this big, beautiful smile that is so welcoming. After high school, Julie attended Penn State University, and she attended the Shenango campus, satellite campus. And after graduating, she worked at Ladbrokes Off-Track Betting Center, where she had a wonderful group of friends. Then she moved on to working at Highland Hall Care Center, which was a nursing home. She was a certified dietitian, and she co-owned the facility with her parents and her sister. And just talk about such a strong family bond.
Judging by her mom's intuition and the fact that they work together, it definitely seems like a close family.
Exactly. I mean, I wish I could have that close of a family. Like, it just seemed like they were just all on the same page.
They really were.
Now, at the time of our story, Julie was only 35 years old when she was reported missing, which blows my mind because I just turned 35 last week and I couldn't even imagine, it's just heartbreaking for her family.
I was also thinking it's almost July 29th as well, the time of this recording.
I did not think that. How wild is that? A lot of coincidences.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, August 29th, was supposed to be a joyous day. Family gatherings, which are aimed to bring extended family together to reconnect and strengthen bonds. I personally love family reunions as a kid, playing with the other children of the family and all the delicious food. Ours would be held at a family member's house that had a creek run along it. And we were definitely those feral children, and our parents hated that drive home.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately for Julie's family, they did not get to have that fun experience. They banded together to try to locate her, and they also held a vigil, I guess because all the family was coming in. It did not say where everyone was coming from, but, sometimes people have to travel for those things. The family was racking their brains trying to figure out what more they could do to find her, and I guess they even considered contacting a psychic. The case was being handled by Shenango Township Police Chief Anthony D. Carbo. He hit the ground running on this case, realizing that it could be either nothing or something. Julie's family told him that she was happy and would have no reason to leave. To be on the safe side, police conducted interviews. Her last confirmed sighting was by her neighbor, who saw her at the Lawrence Village Plaza on Route 65. This neighbor claimed that he saw her at the north end of the parking lot, and that is where Julie had gone to run her errands. So she did make it there. Shortly after the missing person report was filed, police did locate her vehicle at the south end of the lot. When they looked into the vehicle, they could see that she had purchased the items on her list, though her car left authorities with some perplexing questions. Her driver's window was open, her sunroof was open, and her tires were caked in mud. I guess not too odd, since, again, during that time period, people weren't as wary of others as I feel we are today as a society. My sister lives on a huge plot of land, and I still lock my car, but I lived in Philly and habits die hard. Maybe leaving her windows down wasn't strange, but if you were to know that Julie washed her car Friday night, would you have questions? Because where'd that mud come from?
I'm definitely wondering if she's the type of person to leave her Pontiac Grand Prix's windows down or windows open, and where that mud came from. That mud is really suspicious to me.
And we have to consider it was the 90s, so I was thinking for the windows, it might have happened more frequently then than it does now. Like, I know
So
my
crank
mom
windows.
did it when I was young, and I was born in the 90s, so.
Yeah, and just aside from, leaving the car vulnerable to others, like remote starters were not a thing for cars back then. So I know I always crack my windows in the heat. So I think leaving the windows down was pretty typical back then. Maybe not all the way down, like we definitely wouldn't do that these days, because there's just too much to get in and destroy in these cars. But like, if the car is hot, it's not as oppressive if you crack a window open.
Sure.
Yeah. Who knows? Those are some of those questions, So, in the early days, the police focus was at a limestone quarry. They had received a tip that her car was spotted there, driven by multiple men. In addition to the mud, it seemed like a viable tip. That's where the mud could have come from. And they did do searches. They even used, I believe they listed them as cadaver dogs, even though she was just missing, but just to try to locate her. But it didn't turn anything up, and they were no closer to finding Julie. On Monday, September 6th, 1993, a body was found by two hikers, and that was reported at the time that they were two hikers, but articles that were more recent of 2024 says that these two men were part of the search party. So have at it as you will. Both will be listed as references. If they were hikers, I can't even fathom how traumatizing that is, because finding a dead body is like probably not what they had planned for the day, right?
No.
Definitely not.
These hikers were traveling about a quarter mile off of Denny Drive, which was a rural road. They discovered the body in a gully, and this road was not too far from the, at the time, Medusa Quarry, which we know the police had been alerted to earlier in the search for Julie. Now, in an article in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, it said that the road Denny Drive was parallel to the quarry. I think over time and with urbanization, this area has changed. For one, Medusa Quarry is no longer an quote-unquote active company. They operated a limestone quarry in Wampum, Pennsylvania, which is only about a 15-20 minute drive from Newcastle. The facility was located at 2001 Portland Park, and it encompassed approximately 70 acres according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. This quarry specialized in Vanport limestone, which is a key ingredient in Portland cement manufacturing. This company eventually became part of Southdown, and then which is now Cemex, a cement plant. And then second point for Denny Drive, if you look on Google Maps, that road does not extend down to the plant, but I believe possibly 3 decades ago it had. And let's talk about back to the remains. They couldn't be immediately identified due to the state of decomposition. According to an article in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the remains were taken to Pittsburgh for the autopsy and testing. They were able to make the ID of, at the time they listed it as a Jane Doe because they couldn't confirm right away. But they were able to use dental records shared by the family, and it was confirmed to be Julie Conway, and that was done on Tuesday the 7th by John Russell Noga, who was a coroner. The only thing they did release from that was that she had died due to a gunshot wound, but were pretty tight-lipped regarding any other detail, like it didn't say where the gunshot was or anything like that. And I will, on our website, we'll have pictures of kind of where the plant was and where Denny Drive is, and you can kind of like see. The article said that that road was parallel, and that's why I think like things have changed over time, but there is a road that's still parallel to it. It's just had a name change, but with urbanization and adding, developments and stuff, which they definitely have, I think it's changed that. In one article, I saw a mention of police looking for other evidence where her body was dumped. They were hoping to find tire tracks. In another Pittsburgh Post-Gazette article, apparently it had rained and washed away potential evidence, which I thought was strange because I had looked up the weather that week and there was very little rain. We are talking less than an inch in the week she was missing. If the tires were that muddy, then they dug in. That would be deep divots in the mud, and I wouldn't assume they would be easily washed away with such light rain that week. What are your thoughts?
I agree with that. It sounds like whoever did this took her car off-road to dump Julie's body, and it's fairly far into the woods if the tires were getting that muddy with that minimal amount of rain. I also have a Pontiac, so I actually went out and measured it to see how far my car is even off the ground, and it's like less than 10 inches. So if it's that muddy that they're spinning wheels, that just seems really strange to me. And I wonder if law enforcement thought to check the undercarriage of the car for debris as well.
My thoughts went like straight to the track depth. So like if Julie's car was a Pontiac and they were using Julie's car, would it create much depth in the mud because of the weight of the Pontiac? Because Pontiac is a pretty light vehicle. So I don't know how deep it would have, looked. And it could have easily, like the light rain that they had could have easily washed the tracks away. Like it's kind of, I don't know, it's questionable.
It is. It is. It's hard, you know. Things could be totally different. They could totally have a different soil composition than like we do here. Like where we are at, it's super clayey and dry. But I swear Pennsylvania is like its own little land, because you have Eastern Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, then Central Pennsylvania, and it is vastly different from the three.
Yeah. And Paige and I were talking about this earlier, like the quarry might be naturally wet. And I don't know, because I know like her body was like found parallel to the quarry, right? That's what she said. So like maybe it had similar ground, you know, where her body was found. And also, because I live under a rock, what is a gully like? What is that, like a ditch? Or
it's basically like a ditch. Okay. It's caused by erosion usually.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't know what that was, to be honest. I was like,
okay.
Well, and if it's in an area with erosion, that also makes you think like maybe there had been maybe even a slight waterway beside of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird, like enough to track mud on the car, but not enough to leave marks.
Yeah.
Exactly. We will on our website throw up the weather. It is actually pretty cool. I have never used this website before, but I really wanted to show the temperature and the precipitation. So I got that, and it'll show all the days from when she went missing to when she was found. And it was pretty hot, I'm not going to lie. I think some of the days it was hitting 93.
Wow.
So by the end of September, local and state police were grasping at air. Their leads had dried up. They didn't really know where to turn next. The family increased the reward for any information regarding the death of Julie. They had originally offered $2,000, but increased it to $5,000 as incentive for people to talk. They were hoping to drum up new leads, and the case was desperately needing that at that point. In the news articles, you could absolutely see that the authorities were kind of putting a plea out to the public, asking for help. If they saw anything, call in. At the end of November 1993, Elwood City Ledger put out a composite sketch of the man connected to Julie's murder. Police talked to a store clerk inside of the Shenango Plaza where Julie had shopped. This store clerk said that he noticed the man because he didn't actually seem to be shopping. He exited the store and seemed to hover around his car, which was a red pickup truck with a square front. Then when Julie had left, the store clerk noticed that the red truck left too. And he is the one that helped authorities put together the sketch. The man was described as approximately 35 to 45 years old, blondish brown hair of medium length, blue-gray eyes, and standing just over 6 feet tall. He was wearing cut-off jeans and a white t-shirt with a red unknown logo. Officer Greg Crumley of the Pittsburgh Police worked with the store clerk to create this sketch, and it just kind of looks like an average man with no overtly distinguishing features. Police had also put in the paper that they were looking to talk to a woman who was in the area of the parking lot of the Shenango Plaza. They believed she saw Julie talking to the suspect in the pickup truck right before the abduction, and at this point, the authorities were urging the public to contact Pennsylvania State Police with any information. After that, the case went cold in the media for a couple of months. We don't know if that original sketch brought in any tips or generated any new leads, but Tuesday, March 15th, 1994, the state police were issuing another sketch. It was a man that they believed killed Julie. And that's what the article says, because I was like, man, it went from like someone who knows something to someone who did it pretty fast. This time, though, they gave a little bit more information about Julie's encounter with the man in the parking lot, so maybe we can assume they found the female witness they had been looking for. According to an article in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, he was 6 feet 2 inches with a slender athletic build. He had short blonde or light brown hair that was receding, and according to the witness, had a business-like appearance. And it was said while Julie was walking to her car, this man confronted her approximately at 11 a.m. They were talking before he pushed her into the car and drove off.
At this point, it appears to be just a random act of violence. We don't know the exact details regarding Julie's murder, only that she was shot. Do we know if she was sexually assaulted?
No, the detectives were pretty tight-lipped. I mean, they were keeping everything pretty tight, I'm guessing, to be able to narrow down who their perpetrator was. Like, they didn't even mention what she was wearing when she was found.
Interesting. And, they didn't steal her car, so it doesn't seem like a robbery. I'm just really struggling to find a motive here other than random act of violence.
There is a lot of talk in the town with locals, and one of the theories that we'll talk about later is gang activity.
Yeah, maybe something like that. I also thought it was really strange that the composite sketches were very different. In the first one, the guy has long wavy hair, but the second one, he's got shorter hair with a widow's peak and glasses. But the one witness said they saw multiple guys, so maybe this is actually supposed to be two different guys.
It very well could be. I remember hearing, I'm sure all four of us listen to or intake so much true crime. I don't even know where I heard it from, but it was on a show. A police officer said, getting accounts from people on such short notice, if it's not something super drastic or you're not super close to it, recounting that memory isn't always 100% accurate. And that's all I can think about.
Yeah, witnesses are notoriously inaccurate, so maybe it is that it's supposed to be the same guy.
Exactly. And you'd have to imagine that, I don't know, maybe the store clerk didn't get as close as the person that was passing them. You never know.
For sure.
It's hard to
I
think
do
to tell.
find both of the sketches, the man's face looks very long and narrow. That's the one thing that's similar about both of them.
And defined cheeks.
Yeah. For sure.
So this case will again dissolve into the background, not just for months, but for a couple of years. And when it does come back up, it's due to a different case, where the police are beginning the legal process of exhuming Anthony Saulino's body near the end of 1996. Talk about left field, am I right?
Yeah.
So, who is Anthony, and why is he linked to Julie? Well, it turns out James Conway, the husband of Julie, if you remember, did not grieve very long for his murdered wife. Now, how long do you think it took before he had another woman moving into the house? I will spoil it for you, and I will tell you 4 months, which is absolutely gross. I just don't get it.
I agree with you there. I think it's pretty common that men move on quickly, or at least I won't pigeonhole all men and say all of them, but some of them will move on pretty quickly after the death of a spouse. Chelsea, the situation with my father-in-law.
Yes.
Yeah. So my mother-in-law died in December of 2023. And 3 weeks later, well, actually 2 weeks later, after she died, he was messing around with his best friend's wife. And then over the next 6 months, he was involved in several different relationships. And then within 15 months of her death, he's already remarried. So, not defending James in any way, shape, or form, but just some men just can't be alone. They can't be left to their own devices, I guess.
Yeah, I would say that's moving pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know, though. I feel like she passed away, but Julie was murdered. I feel like it's totally there's a difference in that.
Yeah.
But I still get it. I mean, we hear a ton of cases where men, it's like, I don't know, it baffles me. And I'm not saying that we don't hear cases with women doing the same thing. Like, I'm not saying... Right. It's awful. It's gotta be
Maybe
terrible.
they want to fill that gap, you know, since it's no longer, you know, their significant other is no longer there. So they just want to fill it up. Who knows?
And maybe he didn't have a great relationship with his family like Julie had with hers. And it didn't seem like he was close with Michael. People need people, but it still sucks. And I don't know what podcast says it, but like, yeah, he might be an awful person, but it doesn't mean he, you know, is a killer or anything like that. It just sucks. Mm-hmm. So, James's new honey, her name was Deborah Solino, and she also had quote unquote baggage. She was married to James Solino.
Deborah must have had a thing for James's.
Exactly. As if it's not going to make this confusing for us, but I'll make sure to use her last name so we can differentiate between the Jameses. So Deborah was married and had a child who was named Anthony Solino. Surprisingly, during the split, James Solino was granted custody, which I find crazy because usually the mother gets full custody, and this was 30 years ago. I think it's wild. I think something had to be going on. In a Pittsburgh Post-Gazette article, it basically surmises it up as Anthony told a judge he wanted to be with his father, but we all know it doesn't really work that easy. Or maybe Deborah didn't care because she had this newfound time with her most recent partner. And it just baffles me because, like, I want to know more. Yeah. But during all this, tragedy struck again in the Conway house. Or maybe not. I'm not saying Julie was killed there. I just mean, like,
affected.
He is attracting, bad things. Bad juju with James Conway, that is. Because on October 23rd, 1994, Anthony was with his mother when he fell from a tree and he died. And it wasn't immediately. Like, he went to a hospital and he died the next day. Aww. Very, very tragic.
Sad.
But, and the thing is, when he first passed away, like, I couldn't find anything. I didn't find an obituary. I didn't find any news articles when he passed away at that time. But police believe there were inconsistencies with the evidence of his injuries and the stories provided. That is why this poor boy was being exhumed.
So, to clarify, Anthony was visiting with his non-custodial mother, Deborah, and James Conway, when he, quote-unquote, fell 20 feet just a little over a year after Julie was murdered?
Yes. That's correct.
Very suspicious.
I agree. So, when these articles came out and locals found out about this, like, fast-paced relationship James started after a very short period of grief, it kind of raised questions about Julie's death. And it's just not a good look to have when not one, but two people die who are close to you. And it's suspicious. So both deaths were murder? Maybe? Possibly? I, literally could not find any more information after the autopsy was performed. In the Indiana Penn newspaper, there's a quote from State Police Sergeant William Marquis of Newcastle that said, "The autopsy concluded that the boy died from a blow to his head, either from the tree or some other manner."
And the autopsy was completed after he was exhumed or before?
So I don't know if, when it first happened, if there was an autopsy, if they just immediately were like, it was a tragic accident. But the autopsy that this was referencing was after he was exhumed.
And they still said some other matter. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly. I just, there's nothing after. I literally thought that was wild. From the articles, the very minimum articles that I could find, you could kind of read between the lines. James Solino did not think it was an accident.
Do Do we know how old Anthony was when he fell from this tree? Like, was he quite young? Teenager?
So, I could not find that out. I couldn't find out the age of Anthony for the life of me. Very minimal information out there regarding this case. I did call, oh my gosh, it was a huge, it took a couple days to figure this out, but I did call Newcastle PD records room, and then they directed me to Shenango Police Department, and according to the detective I talked to, he couldn't find the case at all. He claimed, yeah, I know, right?
It's crazy.
Ridiculous. He claims that since it was such an old case, it most likely was archived. And, I didn't know where to go from there to pull any more information. I did, you ladies might not know this, but I am a Facebook addict. I love groups. I love, digging. It's a problem.
It's all of us. It's okay. We're with you.
It's true.
Good to know I'm not alone. So, I did go digging, trying to find, his father. His father was living in Ohio, and I just couldn't find anything really solid, and I didn't want to be that creepy person posting. So, I just could not find any more information, though I really wanted to.
Yeah, it's definitely, the whole thing is definitely suspicious.
I think he went above and beyond on the digging into that, though. That's fantastic. Sure. Thank you for trying to find his age.
I tried. I'm sorry, guys.
You did great.
Though I would assume he would be younger, because I feel like it wouldn't make a lot of sense for an older kid to fall and maybe not get as hurt. I don't know. I just picture him being younger. How young? But then I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, maybe he did tell a judge he wanted to be with his dad. And some states do or will follow that, but you have to be older. You have to be a teenager,
16,
I think. So
I think in Ohio.
I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe it's preteen.
So, yeah. I don't know. Just suspicious. But regarding Julie's case, it faded to the background. A long time. Oh gosh, sifting through the articles on newspapers.com, nothing was coming up at all. Other than, apparently there was someone in some political branch that had a wife named Julie Conway, and all of a sudden that's all that would come up was that. But I literally went through every article, nothing for years. And then in 2024, the Newcastle State Police reopened this 3 decades old case in hopes of gathering more tips. There is still a $5,000 reward that has been offered for information leading to an arrest and conviction. According to Newcastle News, anyone with information should call the Newcastle station at 724-598-2211 or submit a tip to the anonymous line at 1-800-4PA-TIPS. Michael Conway is quoted from that article as saying, "If people are sitting on information out there, I wish they would come forward, even anonymously, so that my mom and her family can finally find some justice." Even after all these years, you can tell how much her son Michael still loves her. He rode in her footsteps and attended Penn State University as well. In an article in the Newcastle News, say that 10 times fast, it says that Michael's wife gave him a graduation gift, which was a Penn State University watch with the dates of both Julie and his graduation dates. And I think that was just so thoughtful.
Love that.
Absolutely. I love a supportful partner.
Yes.
So now, more than ever, it is important for a push in this case. People that were involved are now deceased. They need answers more than ever. Hopefully, with the advances in technology and the power of social media, we can get the answers the state police need in the right amount of time. Someone, somewhere, knows something. Typically, in narratives, patterns often emerge. Some killers make multiple attempts before they achieve their goal, while other events may simply be coincidences that we try to rationalize. It's akin to forcing a square peg into a round hole. Our minds seek order even when there may be none. So I'm going to share the following story, and you can decide if you believe it is a coincidence or if you think it's connected. Another woman from the Newcastle area reached out and wanted to talk. Again, Facebook person over here. I posted just to try to find some like background information about Julie. We always like to showcase who they were before the crime, because usually after these things happen, the only thing that's focused on is the crime and the after. And she had reached out, and she believes that what happened to her also happened to Julie. But in Julie's case, the perpetrator succeeded. We're going to be talking about August 28th, 1993, the same day that Julie disappeared. Our anonymous woman was young, only 13. Her parents had dropped her off at Famous Hair at Lawrence Village Plaza, then proceeded to go to the other side of the plaza to shop at Fashion Bug, which, talk about a blast from the past.
I loved Fashion Bug.
Yeah, I hit that place up every week back in high school.
So the thing for me is, like, I think I kept getting it confused with the Bon-Ton. I don't think I shop there very often, but, like, I just can't place it for the life of me. After her haircut was done, she left the shop to go look for her parents. When exiting the store, she was confronted by 4 men in a white Caprice Classic that had been parked at an angle facing warehouse sales. Now, this is the same store that Julie had shopped at for her items. As our anonymous person was passing to go around the building, the front passenger started to shout at her. He wanted her to come to the car. She spooked and took off looking for her parents. Afterwards, she told her parents, and it was kind of like basically a learning lesson to be vigilant, if you will. They did not think anything else of it until the news hit that Julie had been last seen in that plaza. The anonymous woman's mother, checked the receipt of the haircut, and it was 10:45 a.m. Julie's disappearance was estimated around 11 a.m. The family called the state police to report it, but they never got a follow-up call. Could it have been this little girl noticed 4 Mexican men, not the white male the cops were focused on? Could it be because the car they were focused on was a red pickup truck, not a white Caprice Classic? We all know cases where authorities are so focused on one theory, they get lost in the sauce, if you will. What are your thoughts? Police had gotten a tip that they did not discount. Someone called saying they saw a couple men driving Julie's car in the quarry. Could it be those men?
This one is so messy. I can see it both ways. You know, it didn't seem like Julie and James had the best relationship. And I'm not trying to, like, make allegations, but what if the man in the red truck was a friend of Julie's, and that's why she was seen talking to him, you know, by a witness? Then the true murderers could be these 4 guys that, you know, spotted Julie, picked her up, and murdered her. But then on the other hand, you know, some men are a lot of all talk and no walk, if you know what I mean. They could have easily been... That could have easily been these 4 men hounding the 13-year-old. They maybe just wanted to flirt or whistle or do whatever men like to do with their perverted selves sometimes and move on. But both are just definite possibilities. It's just so up in the air.
It is, and I think, like, cases that are so, like, if you quote-unquote cold like this one, sometimes just going back and looking at things that maybe didn't seem like an issue. We had a Patreon case. I want to say it aired. I forget exactly which one it is. We have had too many episodes. Let's talk about that. But this one, they interviewed the person who was the actual killer, and it took like years later because like they just agreed with what he said and it sounded reasonable and they didn't look into it. Like, sometimes, like, they have what they need. They just don't have the right eyes on it, if you will.
Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about. I forget the name of it, though, because I've seen it on, I think it's Prime, maybe? I'm not sure. But I have yet to watch it.
Shannon, I know you did that case. Which one is it? It's, we just did it.
The,
Arkansas. I know
I
I'm
did
gonna remember
Alaska.
it.
Was it the
Gold.
Beyond the Keystone
It's
one?
Gold. It's Rebecca Gold. That's who it is. She went
Rebecca.
missing at her boyfriend's house, and then they found her. Another podcast actually helped find her killer. It's that case.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild.
That is.
So now we're going to talk about the person who requested this case, because someone had reached out to us on Instagram and was like, hey, can you please cover this case? Now, she wants to remain anonymous because she wholeheartedly believes that this killing was gang related, and she wouldn't be the only one locally that believes that either. And I want to be very clear, none of the articles I read about Julie pointed to that. If you were to ask me before now, I wouldn't really have thought Newcastle, Pennsylvania when you mention gang area. But if you do look into it, there is clear evidence there is gang activity operating in the area. There was a huge gang bust in 2006. They had made 20 arrests for the bust. And apparently gangs from Detroit overtook the local crack dealers, brought in their own crew, including kids, to run the drugs because it's, I guess, less time when they're younger versus an adult, which is awful all in itself. Apparently Newcastle turned into the place where you go to buy crack. In a Post-Gazette news article, not only were the 3 local county communities turning to this gang for crack, but customers were coming all the way from Ohio, your guys' state.
Sounds about right. No.
Apparently, these communities had been dealing with drug issues since the 80s. The space was being fought between drug dealers in New York and Detroit.
It initially didn't make sense to me that the Detroit gangs were moving into Newcastle, but when I looked it up, the drive is actually less than 4 hours, and you would pass through lots of big Ohio cities like Toledo, and you'd be just south of Cleveland on the way. So that route does kind of make sense. Do we know if Julie or James were doing drugs, or do we think this was mainly just bringing bad people into the area?
There was never any indication in my research that either Julie or James did drugs, but the only thing that I can think is maybe she saw something she wasn't supposed to. We've seen that happen in other cases, being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
For sure.
And for that, we end our case. It is never easy ending with such little information on a case that's been cold for so long, but hopefully with the renewed interest and the police taking another look into it, we start to get some answers.
Absolutely.
With that, we hope you guys have a wonderful night. And thank you for the Corrupt Podcast for joining us on tonight's episode. I loved having you
this was a lot of
guys.
fun.
Yeah. We loved it.
Yes, thank you for having us.
We can't wait to join you guys. That's all we have for this episode of the Keystone Cold Cases podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and please consider leaving us a review wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to find out more about the podcast, the host, and the cases we cover, or if you want to suggest a case, please visit us at kccpod.com or send us an email at keystonecoldcases@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook at Keystone Cold Cases and on Instagram and TikTok at kccpod. Follow us on YouTube at Keystone Cold Cases. Please remember never to reach out to family or friends of the victims, only to law enforcement if you have any tips. This episode was researched and hosted by me, Chelsea. Find all of our sources, social info, and contact information at kccpod.com. Theme music by Darren Makins and production assistance from Shannon Bickel. Join us again next week for another case to sleuth out to.